What occult secrets lie buried on Jeffrey Epstein's private island? A temple that mimics the holiest site in the world, a sundial steeped in occult and alchemical symbols, a cryptic message left on a chalkboard, and various demonic symbols around his island, including an effigy to the infamous Moloch, the god of child sacrifice. Today, we are going to dive into the occult symbolism on Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Connections to ancient rituals, self-worship, and even Satanism. Buckle up, it's going to be a good one. First, let's have a look at his temple here. Now, if you want my opinion, I believe his temple was made to look like the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock is a building located in Jerusalem. It's considered to be the holiest site in the entire world. All three monotheistic religions revere this site. It's the spot where many believe that God was going to command Abraham to sacrifice his son. It's the spot where people believe God created the world. And it's also the location where Muhammad ascended to the heavens for his night journey in the Quran. So all three religions revere this site, the Dome of the Rock. And Epstein's temple looks very, very similar to it. Even if you don't think that Epstein's temple is meant to look like the Dome of the Rock, Epstein's temple is still meant to look like a holy site. But we know that the doors and windows of the Epstein's temple were painted on. So it's more of a mockery of holy sites. Epstein is mocking the divine, which mocking the divine is something that we very typically associate with devil worship, Satan, occult, all that stuff. Also, when his temple was first built, there are two gold cockatoos on top. Cockatoos are typically associated with personal power and purity. And personal power is very often associated with the devil or Satan. That's kind of the whole point of Satan worship is personal power. So he's has symbolism of personal power and also symbolism of mocking the divine and possibly mocking the holiest site in the entire world right here on his island. Next, we move on to the very strange sundial that Epstein has on his island. Important to note that this sundial was built at the same time as the temple was. So the two structures can be considered connected. The main symbol in the sundial, the face with the 16 rays of the sun around it, is a heraldic charge known as sun in splendor. Heraldic charges were the symbols that you see on family crests throughout Europe, and also designs that people used to paint on shields for protection. This specific one, Sun in Splendor, is heavily associated with alchemy. Alchemy being the ancient practice of trying to transmutate base metals into gold. Alchemy is also associated with the elixir of life, trying to live forever, and the creation of Panacea. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically a cure for all diseases. So alchemy is, often associated with magic, esoteric thought, basically forbidden knowledge, and also the three main goals of alchemy, riches, living forever, and defying disease, can also be considered as trying to defy God, trying to define the divine. No one is supposed to be allowed infinite wealth, no one's supposed to live forever, and no one's supposed to be able to cheat death. But, these are the three main goals of alchemy. So, interesting to point that out there. Around the sun in splendor, we see 13 benches. The number 13 and gatherings of 13 people are often considered unholy, unlucky, and satanic. The reason being is that Judas was the 13th guest at the Last Supper. And 13 is considered a chaotic and unorderly number. It's uneven. Nothing's divisible into 13 besides 1 in itself. It's a prime number. 12, on the other hand, is a very orderly number. There's 12 months in a year. There's 12 signs to the zodiac. Lots of numbers are divisible into 12. 2, 3, 4, 6. So 12 is seen as a perfect and orderly number, and 13 is seen as an unwelcome guest, something that is destroying the order of the number 12. And God is considered to be the force that brings order into the world, that brings order into chaos. And Satan is considered the force that tries to destroy that order, seeks to bring chaos into order. So interesting that 13 is represented here by these 13 benches. Also, we see 13 rocks around the sun on the top half here. numbered by Roman numerals. Now this is interesting here. We see the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 is repeated here. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 is the Roman numeral on this big rock. There's 13 rocks here, but the Roman numerals tell us there's only 12. So this is disguising the number 13 with deceit. Okay, so we have the number 13 represented twice here, once through deceit by these Roman numerals. Deceit and lies, again, associated with Satan and the devil. The truth and not bearing false testimony, associated with God. So very interesting symbolism here around the sundial. Also, note the colors of the benches here. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to them. We've got purple here, there's 2 purple benches, there's 1 orange bench, there's 3 green benches, 2 blue, 3 yellow, 2 red. So this is a very chaotic sundial. There's lots of chaos. There's lots of the number 13 here. Lots of occult and, in my opinion, demonic symbolism here on this alchemical sundial. Also, there's 3 prominent rocks here. This big rock on top and these 2 smaller ones on the side appear to be the 3 most prominent rocks. The number 3 here could be mocking the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So here is again more occult symbolism on this sundial here. Next, we're going to move on to this cryptic chalkboard message left by Jeffrey Epstein in his library. If you've ever seen this message, if you're curious about it, I do have a video where I do a complete breakdown of all these different words and what I think Epstein was talking about. So I'll throw that up for you guys right now. But this picture comes to us from a whistleblower in the U.S. government who released it to O'Keefe Media Group. You can see O'Keefe's watermark here. O'Keefe Media, highly recommend them. They've broken lots of very interesting stories. So check out O'Keefe Media. But this phrase right here that I have circled, I believe to be Axiom of Maria. Now, I know it doesn't really look like it, but I have analyzed Epstein's handwriting quite a bit. This is all Epstein's handwriting here. He's got this half cursive, half print style. You might think this is a AY, but there is actually only 7 words in the English language that start with AY. The only one that makes sense here, it would be the word IN, which is a Hebrew word for I. But this right here is not an N. Again, I've studied Epstein's handwriting quite a bit. Epstein does not add extra pen strokes to his letters. Here's an N right here. There's an N. That's an N right here. That's actually an I and an N combined. So you can see Epstein's not very fancy with his writing. I believe this to be AX. And there's only 17 words in the English language that start with AX. And the only one that makes sense for the rest of these letters here would be the word axiom. And I believe this to be Axiom of Maria, which the Axiom of Maria is a precept or a generally accepted belief in alchemy. The Axiom of Maria states 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and out of the third comes the 1 as the 4th. Now, alchemy is very cryptic. That saying is very cryptic. I'm not going to get into what I think that means or what other people think they mean. The bottom line is that Epstein was into alchemy. He was into the occult. And this is likely going to be, you see he's tied it in here to, I believe this to be a dark brain. This is some sort of theory he has on consciousness. Modern alchemists aren't out there trying to transmutate base metals into gold and create a philosopher's stone. Modern alchemy is more about like psychology and consciousness and expanding the consciousness. Again, esoteric thought, which would be hidden knowledge, things that only a few people are allowed to know. So I believe that's Epstein's interest in this Axiom of Maria comes out of his kind of fascination with alchemy and the occult. Also in this same library, we can see statues of a half-man, half-bird creature. One of them is, he's got this bird creature has its hands on a globe and its feet in the air, which could be seen as a reversal of the natural order. Maybe again, the alchemical principle of as above, so below, as within, so without. Basically saying that our bodies are a representation of the universe. I don't really want to get too much into this because I'm not super comfortable with it, but it is just enough to know that Epstein was very, very seemingly into alchemy and the occult. We also see the bird face here of this statue, the long beak. This could be a representation of Thoth or Thoth the Atlantean, which is considered to be the father of alchemy. He was an Egyptian deity. Allegedly, he was a Atlantean. He was a member of Atlantis who came to Egypt after the Great Flood and helped rebuild society. So, not going to really get into Thoth here or Thoth, but interesting that this statue could very well represent Thoth. We also have several statues around Epstein's island. We have statues of cockatoos, two cockatoos who are facing each other, whereas on Epstein's temple they were facing apart. So interesting to note that there these two cockatoos at his theater are facing each other. But again, cockatoos, a symbol of personal power. Personal power being associated with the devil. People that worship Satan, essentially worship themselves, whereas people who worship the divine are, they're worshiping God, or they're worshiping their fellow humans. Satanists tend to worship themselves. We can also see weird-looking demonic gargoyle statues around his island. These were from a YouTube channel called We Are Change. They actually walked around Epstein's island and found these weird statues. They also found a chair made out of horns and cowhide, and the feet of this chair are actually hooves. I mean, look at that. Those are hooves, the legs of this chair. I don't know about you, but this wouldn't be a chair that I would feel super comfortable sitting in. Horns are, again, associated with the devil. They're also they're weapons. They're weapons that the animal grows, and I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting in this chair. To me, it seems kind of demonic, but hey, this is something that he wanted to have as his island. So make your own assumptions there on what that means. Next, we're going to move on to this bull effigy that he has on the beach of his island, grazing in the grass here. Now, you might say, what's the big deal with that? Well, let me tell you, I have spent a lot of time looking at Epstein's island. I've got a video showing all the drone footage shot by Rusty Shackelford, where I provide commentary on it. It's a great video. It's 3.5 hours long, but I do have a lot of insights on Epstein and his crimes there. And so I've spent a lot of time looking at Epstein, looking at photos of his residences, looking at photos of his island. I watched that 3-hour drone footage over and over again. And this is the only cow or ranch decoration I have ever seen in any of Epstein's residences. This one bull effigy innocuously grazing on the beaches of his island. Okay? Now, the ancient Canaanite god Moloch, associated with child sacrifice, was a man with the head of a bull. Allegedly, what these Canaanites would do, they actually had an effigy built. It was made out of brass, and it had a spot underneath it where a fire would be lit. The entire statue would heat up, and it had outstretched hands, and these hands would heat up, and these Canaanites would actually place a child on the red hot hands of this effigy, and it would burn it to death while they were playing drums and flutes and all kinds of things. It's a very terrible story. I don't like spending a lot of time thinking about this. I don't like spending a lot of time thinking about Moloch worship. We do see it in the Podesta emails, the Hillary Clinton emails, where either Clinton or one of her aides talks about sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch. We see it with, Bohemian Grove. A lot of people associate that with Moloch worship. This isn't something I like to spend a lot of time thinking about because it's very, very dark. But to me, that could be the purpose of this cow grazing here innocuously on the island. It could be a symbol for something much darker that went on here. And this is why I wanted to make this video, because I know a lot about Epstein, and at first I never thought he had some sort of occult or a magical satanic connection. But the more I looked into him and the more I watched this drone footage over and over and started thinking about all the different things, about the weird statues and the horn chair, about the temple, the sundial, the message on the chalkboard, and then the cow that looks like Moloch, it really got me thinking, because it's all just very weird and very interesting when you put it together. And I will just say, Epstein, from all the accounts that I've read, he was very interested in personal power. He definitely had this view that he was special. He definitely had a view that he was better than other people. I saw in one of his archived websites, he had several websites, JeffreyEpsteinScience.com, JeffreyEpsteinBlog.com, JeffreyEpstein.org. There were a lot of websites that he ran back in the day. And in one of these websites, he basically referred to common people as cockroaches and rats. So he has kind of this elitist mentality of common folk. And that's a common theme among Satanists, of viewing other people as less than them, of wanting personal power, wanting personal gain. And I just want to say, I've studied theology a bit, not an expert by any means, but I've studied theology a bit. And when you boil this stuff down, religious folks and godly folks they're putting the needs of others before them, they're putting God before them, and they're serving the greater good of humanity. Whereas Satanists and devil worshippers are only serving themselves. If you think of this as an actual battlefield, if these evil Satanists were to theoretically win, they would immediately turn their swords on each other and start fighting amongst themselves, because they're not an alliance, they're a confederacy. A confederacy is a group of individuals who are loosely aligned by a common goal. And once that common goal is gone, they would just start fighting each other. Serving yourself is anti-human. If we all just went about serving ourselves, the human race wouldn't last very long. If we want the human race and humans to prosper for a long time, we have to start thinking about other people. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it was you would get to go on and you would get to ascend to have a positive afterlife if you had spent your life primarily in the service of other people versus the service of yourself. And just think about how much of a beautiful world we would live in if everyone on this planet spent the majority of their time serving others. I mean, just think about that. Just really think about what kind of world that would be like. And as far as personal gain goes and personal gratification goes, and its connection to Satanism, I will just say that the devil cannot make hell beautiful, and so he makes the road to hell beautiful. That's it for today. If you like this, be sure to like and subscribe. See you on the next one.